Hello! Today let's work on broken thirds, or alternating thirds they're sometimes called. This is the sort of thing where we do every other note through a scale, and the reason why you'd want to know that is, for one thing, they do show up a fair amount in the repertoire, and then another thing is it just helps you know your scales better. It's good for us to know our scales, just not always only in scale order. And then the third thing is there's one particular fingering that will also be used as our guide to figuring out the pattern for thirds and sixths and double stops, which is a more advanced technique, but you can use broken thirds as a way to get you there. So broken thirds, every other note. Let's just, with C major, let's figure out what we're talking about. If I play C, I'm going to skip D and go to E. Now D and skip E and go to F. Of course, I could keep going, but that's the idea, every other note of a scale. The way I like to think of it is that I'm really playing a scale, and then I'm harmonizing it with the note a third above. Harmonizing with the same scale, but a third higher. Now, if that pattern, the first time you try it, still kind of doesn't really click, one thing you can try is just to fill in the middle note. So you play going two notes up and one note down. Then you leave out the middle note and you get, and it's a little painstaking at first, but you'll get there. Otherwise, just get yourself a method book that has the broken thirds written out in it and get used to reading them for a while, and the pattern will stick with you. So for C major, we could work on other fingerings too, but I think it makes more sense to talk about the other fingerings with scales that don't start on an open string. So for example, D major. Now D major does use enough open strings. We could incorporate the open strings similarly and go, so if I go, and coming down would be the reverse. It's good to do both, of course. For D major, we could just leave the fingering at that as well, but in part because there are some scales where you can't use open strings. Keys like D flat major, F sharp major, they happen. So we might as well learn a fingering that allows us to play without the use of open strings. And then that becomes what you can call a universal fingering. We can use the exact same fingering and just transpose it for whatever key we're in. So the two most common fingerings for broken thirds, if I'm wanting to use a universal fingering and avoid open strings, involve doing some odd number of notes and then groups of four thereafter. So I either do one note and then groups of four, or three notes and then groups of four, like this. Here's three. Now I shift and I play a group of four. And I repeat. So I'm always shifting to second finger. You could shift to third finger in some cases. You do have to know where you're shifting to and what pattern you're doing, but knowing that you're always shifting to second, and there's a reason for that, because you want to have a finger above and below to play the notes on either side. In essence, I'm always shifting and then playing what's called a turn. A turn is a given note embellished by the note below and the note above, or the other way. And sometimes we leave out the middle note and we go, or, and those are called a turn. The only reason to call it a turn is just, they also happen a lot in the cello repertoire. And if you just can assign one concept to a group of several pitches, in this case 4 notes, and your brain gets after a while to where you just think, oh, play a turn. And it does without having to create every pitch by itself, like learning how to pronounce a long word just one syllable at a time. So I could also play one note and then shift and play groups of 4 as turns. One note and then groups of 4. Between these two fingerings, you really should learn them both well, because depending, when you run across them in a passage in the repertoire, there'll be sometimes, depending on what finger you were automatically on anyway when the passage started, you'll be glad that you have the versatility to do either pattern. And it doesn't take too long once you learn the pattern to learn the other pattern, because they're so similar. So apply this to every scale. We could apply the same thing to D flat major, or it's the same thing. I just have to transpose all the pitches accordingly and apply the same fingering. The other fingering, the third fingering for broken thirds, we'll talk about next time, and those will be what we'll use as our basis for thirds and sixths. But in the meantime, get familiar with these two. Happy practicing.